Welcome back, bookish people, to the ereads podcast. I am your host, Liz, and this is my podcast where I talk about authorship, books, and all the different parts of the creative process. Today, I have a budding author, Kalee, here to talk about her journey creating a nonfiction book, which is releasing on July 11th, called Make Money Your Thing. So before we jump into the episode, let me tell you a little bit about Kalee. She has been in the financial industry for over 15 years, and her love of money started very young. Growing up in a single-parent household, she watched her mom struggle with finances and wished there was something that she can do to help. Today, as a single mom and financially independent woman, Kalee is called to support women in their financial lives. She continues to create initiatives to grow a community that brings together financially independent women that are stepping into their worth as serious earners and smart investors. She also has a children's picture book called Money Wise Mabel's Bursting Bank coming out in September, which is aimed at opening the conversation to talk to children about money to build their money confidence early on. Now that you know a little bit about Kalee, let's have a quick ad and jump right into the episode. Today's podcast is brought to you by Liquid IV, which is the category-winning hydration brand fueling your well-being, and their hydration multiplier is the one product you're missing in your daily routine. The thing that I like about Liquid IV is it's very convenient to add to your daily routine. It's, conveniently packaged, so you just got to take out one stick, add it to your water bottle, and you're good to go. There are 12 delicious, refreshing flavors to choose from that keep you hydrated. Liquid IV contains 5 essential vitamins, including B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C. Get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code ereads at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code ereads at liquidiv.com. Welcome, Kalee. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, anytime. And, to welcome folks to the show, I like to start with what's called my bookish question. Just something light and fun about reading. So you ready to go?
Yes.
All right. So you mentioned that you are a new writer. And so I was wondering, is there a book that inspired you to write? Whether to start your writing journey or while you were writing, you read it and you're like, yeah, I'm reignited and ready to go into writing. But is there a book that inspired you?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm just such an avid reader. I've always surrounded myself with books. So I think it was growing up, it was reading a lot of just fiction novels that made me so inspired. Some books I would read, I was just my mind was blown at how
Yeah.
good they were. And I was like, wow, I want to do this. I want to create something. But I think it was just kind of books to do with lately a lot of personal finance books were kind of my inspiration, because for me it was, I knew I was writing, that was my decision. Okay, I'm going to write a book about money and finances. So just works of authors from different kind of personal finance books was really inspiring to me, because it was sort of what I was trying to do. And so that, and I guess what was on my writing journey, I would actually pop open pages of Untamed by Glennon Doyle. So I really liked that book. And I found when I would just kind of open it up to just anywhere and read something, all of a sudden after a couple of paragraphs, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go and write mine. And it has nothing to do with money and finances, but just something about it was just so beautiful and kind of all over the place. But it just would it's so opening it up to wherever random page I would find, it just was inspiring to just kind of push me on my journey.
That's exciting, right? It's such a good feeling too, when you read something and it just makes you feel so good that you just kind of pour that into whatever you're doing. And that's really fun.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Writing can be fun. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm actually, money sometimes scares me.
Yes.
I try and be better at it. Sometimes it comes to me well and sometimes it doesn't. How was it writing a book about money and finances? Like, what was your journey like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I guess growing up, like money was really a source of struggle for me and what I learned and saw. So, my mom was a single mom and she did everything she could, but like it was tough and there was
Mhm.
times where it was just like I almost like hated money for what it,
Right.
it did to like her and how it, how much stress it caused her. So it was like this love-hate relationship. But I think kind of that being my beginning, it was quite like a, I don't know, a push to write this book or to create that. Cause you're right. There's so much like there's fear, there's stress, there's almost like even
Mhm.
shame when it goes like really deep to a matter of like our worthiness when it comes to
Right.
money and how we're, doing in the whole money game or whatnot. And so I think it was like the beginnings for me, it was really stressful and money was almost like the enemy. But then
Mhm.
it was like, I want to figure it out. I want to create something then too to really help all women. So women, like you're saying, women who are feeling scared, feeling intimidated. I wrote this book for that reason. It was like what I thought I would want, my daughter to know when she grew up.
Nice.
Like it was
Yeah.
like everything in one place of like what I would want to share with any woman because I know obviously I can't work or help all the women out there. So it was like, how can I give something so women don't have to feel that way? So maybe I can help women that or are like my mom and going through those scenarios that they can it can be different their relationship with money.
I think that's like so helpful. Um, it can be hard to do to strike that balance of like education, but also kind of like this like acceptance of like no matter where you are on that this journey. And so I'm curious. So this is a, nonfiction book, right? This is
Yes.
about like tools and strategies, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So I'm always like really fascinated, like how do you structure this? Like what did like the planning and writing look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at first it was like very technical and boring. And so I was working with a book coach, thankfully, and she told me that, and which was great, don't hold anything back. And so it's so interesting because she's my book coach was, she wrote like fiction. And so it's so great to work with someone like that because yes, there is this balance you have to strike because nonfiction can be really boring when it's coming from the mouths of us professionals and we're just like getting all into like, well, you do this, this, and this. And she's like it's just she's you have to you have to have a story and you still
Yeah.
have to do the story arc. And I was like, at first I was quite hesitant. I'm like, well, how does that make sense though in a book about money? But she had me like do activities to like bring out that creative side and
Really?
then find stories. So obviously like I'd have the kind of technical points and what I want to get across, but then she'd have me come like bring out stories that really help like illustrate this and take that reader on the journey. And then it came to two like restructuring the whole book. So then when I got to the editing process, my fabulous like structural editor was like, no, this isn't working at all. Like you need to like rearrange the whole thing. It has to flow. Like it has to take the reader on the steps almost like where it's like you start here and then you get to there. And I was like, oh no. Like I felt like she was saying like rewrite the whole book. Like I was just like, the
Yeah.
stress. But it was just more of a rearranging. So I think that's what's really neat is like if we can incorporate still that storytelling because that's what we love. Like you realize
Yeah.
when a book gets your attention or a show or a speaker, it's they start with like this story that they take you on and then it kind of immerses you and brings you in. So I do that in the book and I'm so lucky that I've been in the industry about 15 years. So I have so much stories to pull on of
Yeah.
clients I've worked with and of my own and growing up and what I went through and what I experienced. So you're right. I try to make it really approachable, really hopefully women seeing themselves in these people that I share stories about in this book. So it's like, again, non intimidating and it's inspiring to hear just other everyday women, doing this, making it happen. And this is what you can do as well.
Oh, I love that. That makes me like really excited because I don't think, again, you think of like nonfiction as having these stories, but yeah, like it is. It's all weaving a story together, no matter if you're starting from point one to point five, whatever, but there's a story. And being able to think about that to draw in your reader and to help make it applicable is really exciting. And You mentioned like your book coach had you do some exercises. I'm curious, did you have any that you really loved doing?
No, like, she would just give me, like a scene almost or just, like, a sentence, and I'd have to kinda just, like, riff off it and go from there, and it's fun because it was, like, taking me outside the box because it's, like, very
Yeah.
technical, rational Kaylee of, like, numbers and math, and so then she has me just, like I was writing about, like, a zombie scenario on one and stuff. I'm like, "Oh, this is so fun." And it just gets you outside of the box and almost just like, okay, like, gets things flowing in your mind, and then you can call on those stories and see how you can share them in a way that's like entertaining and fun. And for me, even trying to be like funny, I love like
Yeah.
humor, and I'm so like in like awe of people who can take humor and put it in book form, because it's one thing
Yeah.
to like be a stand-up comedian, but it's another thing to put it in writing form. It's really hard to do, especially when you're doing a money book. So I even tried to make it funny too. So that's the task in its health. But yeah, so it was just fun getting outside the box and doing something completely different than what you're comfortable with. I would like strongly urge anyone to try exercises like that because it just gets the juices flowing.
It also seems like you were putting a little bit of your personality in the book. You know, would you say like readers kind of get to see not only the values of money, but a little bit of who you are?
Absolutely, yeah, like, I make a lot of references to, like, McDonald's because I'm a huge McDonald's fan. I'm a mom to, like, an 8-year-old, and we both love McDonald's, so I have, like, a whole story about advocating your money, but it starts with the story of my daughter advocating for her fresh fries at McDonald's, go figure, and then, like, references to the Real Housewives and things like that that I just love and are so fun, and so I do, yes, put a bit of myself in there, and just like silly things I did with money or like sort of money mistakes and
Yeah.
stupid things I did with money along the way. I'm happy to share those too.
Oh, that sounds like so exciting. And again, to have again not only these tools, but to get to know you through this process. The other thing that you mentioned that I thought was really interesting is talking about that structural edit. I think on the fiction side, we know about having a developmental edit and thinking about the plot and all of that. But I think that's also helpful for folks listening and knowing that the editing process when you're doing a nonfiction book is also scary, and there's also a lot of components. So what was editing like going through that process?
It was really scary because, like, basically, you're thinking everything's great, right? Like, it
Yeah,
always feels like the final version, and then you're like,
yeah.
"Here it is," and then they come back with, like, just, like, almost a generic paragraph of, like, "It needs to be totally reorganized," and so my mind was like, "Oh my gosh." So, again, it was like I went to my book coach and had a conversation. She helped me just, like, understand and break it down step by step,
Nice.
but I think it's like for authors and writers to know that like that's just part of the process. I remember reading, it was good that I was reading a book. I can't remember what novel I was reading, and I was reading her acknowledgement section, and she said something about like how she was so grateful for the editors and how this was like her 18th version of the book, and
Wow.
I was like, what, like 18? And so then it felt really normalized that it's not good. Like the first draft is like probably like garbage, and it doesn't even look the same from where you start to where you get to, but it's amazing how that becomes that. So know and like feel still confident in knowing that it might be overwhelming and the editing process might be a little bit scary, and make you feel like almost like doubt yourself or like, oh, I've done this all wrong. But it's not that. It's just like it somehow creates, what it becomes, which is usually amazing, and you don't even realize what that's going to be until you actually get there. It's funny how it works that there are so many versions or iterations of what it starts with and what it ends up being. And so yeah, hopefully like don't like lose faith or give up or feel too stressed. Know that that's part of the process, and it's like it's a good part of the process because it's just making it be like the best it can be.
Absolutely. Like selfishly, I love that about, my podcast is getting to talk to writers across so many different spectrums, and everyone feels like very similar about the editing process, because I know in kind of going through that, because again, I'm also new at this and going through and having that sense of like, am I doing everything wrong? Am I doing things right? It was very nerve wracking. And so absolutely, I totally agree, and echo, like if there's someone going through the editing process, don't give up, just keep going. Okay, so like editing wasn't maybe like the most fun part. What was your favorite part of this process?
I guess it was, like, the writing. As much as I, like, didn't like it at times, I don't know, it's so fun because it got me out of my typical day-to-day. Again, like, I'm very analytical in my job, and you have to be very, like that's just the way it works, and it's very, numbers oriented. So I think it just brought out this creative side that I forgot or I'd kind of like
Yeah.
pushed aside over the years. So it was fun. Like I would make sure I had like my writing place, which it was like I would usually just get a cozy spot, like with like pillows and stuff, and you start with like a meditation and then just go. Like I would just start and start writing, and I didn't necessarily always have a plan, but I did always have like usually like a numbers goal of how many words I wanted to do. Again, being the numbers person, I like broke down like how many words do I have to do a day. But sometimes it felt like I didn't know going into it at all what I was gonna write, but
Right.
just somehow came out. And I think that's like the beauty of it. It's like when you can get into flow, and it's where I was finding that flow. Like I don't in my job it happens too, and I guess it's because I'm so used to it and it's part of what I do, but it didn't writing because this is new to me and this is my first book. It didn't feel as natural. So when I did get to be in that flow place, it felt so interesting because it would just be like it just literally comes to you and you're like, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
So I guess it is that flow, like when it's like you lose track of everything and you just start going and things and
Yeah.
ideas pop up. So I think that was the fun part, just getting to be in that flow, like access that part where it's like everything kind of on the outside just like fades away and you're so focused. And so it's so neat to like be in that, especially as a person who doesn't spend a lot of time in like my creativity side, that it was
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, lovely. And so, like, being new to this and going through this process, like, what are some things that you wish new writers or people who want to write knew about this process?
I think it's like believing in yourself and knowing that no matter what kind of like career your path you're on or your history with writing, what that looked like, you can still be a writer. Like for me, I was like a straight A student, not to brag or anything, but like across the board, I did so well. And so I remember being in university and my marks were like fabulous, top of the class. But then guess what? I took an English course because I had to take an English course, and it was my absolute worst mark. Like it was barely a pass. And that messaging to me was like, you're not good at writing. Like that's that's what came out of that is like, you're terrible at this. And so then that was the messaging, is like, I suck at this. So something I wanted to do all my life, like I said to myself, I want to write a book. That would be amazing to write a book. But then I felt like I wasn't allowed to. So
Yeah.
it's, I would say, question some of your own internal beliefs, because there's probably, if I would say, like when I say to people I wrote a book, a lot of the response I get is like, I've always wanted to write a book too, or I have this idea for a book. And I'm always like, well, then just do it. Like I did it, anyone can do it. So I think that's the message. Like, even someone who almost failed English class can write a book. And it's not about that. Like, it's like this journey that anyone can do, but it's believing in yourself, and it's understanding that it's not necessarily like an easy path, and that imposter syndrome might come up, like feeling
Yes.
like I don't belong here, and I'm not supposed to, I'm not a writer, like I'm a financial advisor, I'm not an author. I still feel like I'm not allowed to say I'm an author until my book officially is like out and launched. Like it comes out on July
Girl, let
11th
me
and I'm like,
tell
am I
you.
allowed to say I'm an author yet, or do I wait? Um
Let
so
me tell you about that struggle. I so feel you. Like only recently do I like put on that title, but like even that is like, yes, I so feel you. So it's like, do I get to say this? Am I like, maybe not really, but yeah. And I encourage anyone to like own that. Like whether you wrote a short story, a sentence, whatever, you're an author. Absolutely.
absolutely. Like it's just like anyone can be, like you can create art and be an artist, and you can paint a picture and be a painter. Like I do believe that like it's not this like closed off feel, like where we're not allowed in. Like we're all allowed. We're all allowed to explore different avenues. We don't have to like peg ourselves as like, no, I'm the financial advisor and that's all I am. Because that's the fun part about life, is like getting to experience these different sides to ourselves and try something new. So it's yeah. So it might feel uncomfortable, but I do believe like if you have this book in you, like don't let yourself be what's holding you back. Cause that's an
Hmm.
internal battle of like, I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. I'm not, I wasn't born a really good writer or something. All those things can come up. But you have to push through those. And hearing the stat of like the reason that, most books don't even get written or complete was just like they just don't finish it. I was like, well, that's amazing. All I have to do then is finish it. So just write it and finish it and it will come from there. And just know like, oh, okay, I can like beat that stat. I can finish a book. Like it's just you just have to commit to it, set the goal and go at it.
I love that. Absolutely. Especially like challenging those internal beliefs. Absolutely. Because so much comes up when you're writing. At least I know it did for me.
Mhm.
And, absolutely. And it feels so good to challenge that and then get to the other side. And so, listen, listeners, we believe in you. So, like, finish your book, start that book because you got two people here that believe that you can do it.
Yeah, there's so much value in sharing your stories and there's room for it. Like we're not going to be replaced by AI completely, right? Where there's still so much power in like the authenticity of it coming from a person.
Absolutely. Kaylee, thank you so much for all your tips. But can you share what are some tips or things that people will find in your money book? Like, what are some of the takeaways in there?
Yeah. So great question. A lot of what you said of almost like deciding coming from a place of maybe fear, not thinking you're good with money, women saying things like, I'm not good with math, I'm not good with numbers, money isn't my thing. And that's why I called it make money your thing, because we can change that. It doesn't
Love
matter
that title,
what
by the way.
your money story, yeah, thank you. It doesn't matter what your money story has been up to this point or where you're at or you're in your journey, whether you're young or old, whether you're in debt, whether you have tons of money, there's all still like value, I think, in it for any reader because it's more so just building confidence in women. It's taking them to a place of saying, like, I've got this. I feel good about this. I can go have a conversation with my financial advisor. I can go make a decision about my mortgage, or I can go and I can get out of debt. I can, that you feel equipped to take on these money situations once you've read this book. That's really what I hope. I hope to change like the entire relationship women have with money. I think for so long, because it like the patriarchal past or whatever it's from, women don't feel like we belong in the sphere of money. We feel like
Right.
we don't feel like we're, serious earners and smart investors. Like again, it's like some sort of imposter syndrome that comes up that this isn't our space to excel in. And of course it is for all women. Like I want every woman to say, I can do the things I want to do. I can achieve these things and not think that that ability to do it relies on a man. Like I had a woman call me the other day and admit that she had the internal belief that she didn't really have to worry about her finances because one day she would get married and her husband would take care of it all. And I'm really glad she said that because that's
Yeah.
exactly what I wrote this book for. That so women don't
Mm,
have that internal belief anymore. Like if you have it, by all means, okay, that's fine. I'm not saying anything against it. It's probably been socialized into us or told to us by
right.
our family or something. Um, but I want that to go away. I want that to be gone for good, that no
Yeah.
woman ever thinks that her ability to succeed in her financial life depends on a man. Like that's absurd. And I'm the mother of a daughter. And I'm just like, I would never want her holding on to that belief. So it's just this empowering, like, we've got this. We can make money our thing. And it takes that reader on that journey, first doing some of the inner work to deal with some of the internal money beliefs, and then building that confidence to get to a point where you just feel good about it.
Oh, I love that. This isn't just money. It's empowerment.
It is.
Yay.
Empowering women, yes.
I love that. So Kaylee, please, share where can folks pick up the book? Where can they connect with you?
Yes. So you can go to my website, www.kaleeboisvert.com. Also, you can find the book for pre-sale now on like Target's website, Amazon, and then it's going to be in all just local bookstores as of July 11th. So it's coming out
Nice.
soon, but definitely don't procrastinate. You can get a pre-order copy of it now so you're ready to go right when it comes out. And yeah, and reach out to me on my website. And if any questions or this brings up anything to you, please reach out. I love having these conversations, and I love learning, what issues and things people are dealing with so we can have these conversations.
Yay. Well, again, congratulations on the release. Mine is actually releasing a couple days later on the 17th. So,
Yay.
yay. We're book twins.
Book twins. July's a big month.
Yes, it is. So again, Kalee, congratulations.
Thank you.
And my any last words before I ask my last question, anything you want to leave like the listeners with?
Just that, like, yeah, like you said, believe in yourself, write that book if you have this idea, like the world needs it. And I'm sure it's something special that will somehow like can touch the life of someone you don't even realize. That's the great thing about books. Like someone from across the world might read your book and be inspired by it. So make sure that like you do the take the action, write the book, believe in yourself. If it's something you're really passionate about, if it's like a nonfiction book about the work you do, there's so much value in that. So get it out to the world and share it, because there's so much value in sharing something that obviously is the work you're doing and you're passionate about. So I hope everyone is inspired to write, because if I can almost fail English and do it, then everyone can do it.
Absolutely. And I know I feel inspired to write and create. So thank you for that. And, Kalee, my very last question for you is to end on a little bit more inspiration. So I like to end with a word or a phrase that we can use in a prompt, similar to your exercises. So if you had to leave us with a word or a phrase that we can use in our creative process, what would you leave us with?
Just one word.
It could be a word. It could be a phrase. It could be anything. I've had squirrel. I've had trepidation. I've had, so it could be anything.
Maybe just like an I am, like as a journaling prompt, an I am. There's so much power to like I am building wealth, I am becoming a writer. I'm giving you ideas. I shouldn't plot ideas, but just starting with I am and see where that takes you.
Oh, that's so good. I'm like so excited because whether you are doing this like a personal prompt, like you mentioned, whether you're thinking about it from the character's point of view, there's so many different things. And so listeners, stay tuned to the end of this episode to see what I do with Kalee's prompt. I am. I can't wait for you to hear it. And Kalee, I can't wait for the release of your book. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
From the perspective of Tabitha, the main character in my book series Prophecy Trilogy, New Moon, I am on the edge of a transition, on the precipice of change, so close to a transformation that I can see the reflection of who I am becoming. Yet I am fearful and frozen, locked in the past while yearning for the future. I am a chosen one who is powerful, one who is instrumental in the course of change. I am a contradiction. I am fragile and soft. I am timid and weak. Can I coexist in this echo chamber of change? I am. I will. I have to be me. Tabitha, chosen one, daughter, sister, friend. I am all that I desire to be and more if I choose to believe in me.